Welcome back, Healing Overflow with Dr. Toy family. It's so good to see y'all. You are watching and listening to Healing Overflow with Dr. Toy's social work podcast. I'm so glad that you continue to watch and listen. Y'all continue to share. It's been fantastic. Your questions are awesome. So thank y'all so much. Keep on listening. Keep on sharing. You know, as you heal, your healing overflows onto everyone else. That's why it's called Healing Overflow, you know? So wonderful. Thank y'all for that. Continue to send in your questions to Ask a Therapist segment. I've gotten so many questions. I need to answer some more. I'm going to do a whole nother segment on Ask a Therapist and answer those questions. And you know, if your question is read and answered on the podcast, you get your Starbucks gift card. So let's get down to business. Oh, wait. Click on the link. I got to tell you where to send in your your questions. The Linktree link. You can listen to season 1 and season 2 of the podcast through the Linktree. All the social media, all the different sites. We're on everything. I'm proud of that. But also you can email me directly, toyaj@pitt.edu. Ask your question, ask what you want, give your comments. We've been conversing. We've had conversations off camera. Y'all are thedope.com. So thank y'all so much. Okay. I am very excited about our guest today because I have been trying for months to get these folks is busy out there in those streets. I've been trying to get this topic on the podcast for months. No joke, y'all. It is so important. We are talking about homelessness. It's one of the most important topics, I believe, and it should be for all Americans and everyone around the world. So we nailed down Tamiko Dawkins, coming all the way from Light of Life Rescue Mission, Light of Life Rescue Mission. I keep getting ready to call it Light of Life Shelter because that's what it was back in the day when my mom used to take us down there and we would volunteer at Light of Life, but it's now called Rescue Mission. And I understand why. Y'all do a lot of rescue and a lot of mission. It's mission driven. So I would like to introduce Tamiko, and I want Tamiko to just talk about what do you do at Light of Life Rescue Mission. Tamiko is the director of programs, so she is probably going to be modest, but she has a lot of responsibility. So put your hands together. I forgot to do the applause. Put your hands together for Tamiko Dawkins, everybody. You hear them, they're screaming.
Yes,
yeah. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. As she said, my name is Tamiko Dawkins. I am the Director of Programs at Light of Life Rescue Mission. And at Light of Life Rescue Mission, our primary mission is to reach out to those who are broken, who have experienced homelessness, food insecurities, the unsheltered. That's for men and women with children, families. And so our mission is to provide a place of safety, a place where they can come in and feel the love of Christ and have hope that their situation doesn't have to stay what it is. And so that's our primary goal, and I'll talk more about some of the other things that we do as we move along this podcast. But I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for tracking me down and bringing me here.
Of course, I was relentless, y'all. This is a topic that we need to talk about. And when I talked to Tamiko just over a phone call, I could hear the passion that you have. And I was drawn to that. Like, this is who we need to talk about this really important topic. Like, I can pull up some research and spill it off and spew this and that, but you have the experience working with the unhoused. Let's get something straight, first of all. What is the terminology, the proper terminology, the proper way to address the unhoused? It does change, and so as social workers, we in particular need to know. But we have the community, the broad community. We have the University of Pittsburgh. We have people outside of Pittsburgh watching. We want to get it right and not offend our brothers and sisters who are unsheltered. So tell us, what is the right word? What are we saying?
And we often refer to them as the unsheltered. And because anybody at any given point in their life could become unsheltered. It's not just based on mental health or substance abuse. Someone can have grief. and they can find themselves not having the capacity to focus and to deal with life, and they can find themselves in a situation where they don't have housing, where they're unsheltered. And so we like to have dignity towards that population, and by calling them the unsheltered.
Unsheltered. Is unhoused okay too?
Unhoused.
Okay. All of that. But not the homeless man.
The homeless man, the homeless woman, the homeless this, the homeless, because sometimes when people make that reference, sometimes it comes with a negative connotation. And so we want to just speak to people with dignity and say unsheltered and unhoused.
We got it. We're going to get it right. We got it from this point on. Tamiko told us what to do. So we got to do it. Yeah, it does. It does leave a negative stigma. If you're like the homeless person, that becomes who they are, what their character is, instead of saying, if we're saying unhoused or unsheltered, then that's a situation that they're in. And it's not all their fault. If they're unsheltered, that means that we didn't do our part to make sure they had a shelter. I'm talking about society. So I really like and adopt this terminology. We put the person first, and we make it clear this is the situation they are in, not the person they are.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. We got it. Okay. So I seem to say this all the time. My students know that I say social work called me.
Yes.
Social work said, come here. This is what you're going to do. You're going to be a therapist. You're going to be a social worker. You're going to teach this. So I tend to believe, and just from talking to you, it sounds like you were called by this population. So tell me, like, what made you work with the homeless population, unhoused population, and did you feel like you were pulled and called to the profession?
Yes, absolutely. Let me tell you how this all got started. I remember serving in the Army for 8 years, and then when I got out of the military, I worked in criminal justice and some other spaces, but I remember working specifically at the Veterans Administration, the VA hospital, and I saw social workers and how they interacted with the veteran population and how they just wore so many hats and just trying to help and come alongside and work alongside individuals who had, various, whether from kidney disease to unsheltered to food insecurities to. And so it was a calling. It was, and I knew that God was calling me to work with this population. So I started going to school for it. I started out at USC, University of Southern California, online. And then midway through there, I needed a kidney transplant. And so after my kidney transplant, I wasn't sure if I was going to go back to school.
Right.
But then I came to Light of Life. God called me out of Light of Life, out of the VA into Light of Life. And when I got there, it was like God said, it's time for you to go back and finish that degree so you can be equipped to fully come alongside and help. So it was truly a calling. And now that I've been there and working with some of the men and the women who come through our doors, I know of a certain that that's what I'm called to do.
Okay, so you are obviously a person of faith. So I've heard that quite a bit. And what I like to teach my students and also share with the viewers, there are people that are not people of faith. There are people that don't believe in a higher power. There are some people that do, that don't have a specific religion. And we are open and we endorse all of that and we support all of that. Yes. So that is something that I say off screen to my guests, that you have to be free to share what it is and what your life is about. So it doesn't necessarily mean it is the views of the University of Pittsburgh, but it is my guest view, and my guests are to feel comfortable when they talk about who they are and in their life. And so viewers and listeners, you have your beliefs and you have your perspective, and I love that, and I would want you to share that as well. So the Light of Life is a faith-based organization. Some would even say it's a Christian organization. Yes. And I know that some people have been very, I've heard some rumors. and this is why I really wanted someone of Light of Life, because I wanted to know the answers to it as well. It's called Rescue and Mission, and mission is when you do feel called to something. Let's not even, wait a minute, before I ask the next question, we can't breeze past the fact that you had a kidney transplant. You ain't even supposed to be here doing any kind of mission. So there is a purpose for your life, and you are on you were on that path and that plan. And so I'm so glad that you can be here to tell the story, but there are so many people that benefit from what you do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say that, like, we can't breeze past that. I shouldn't be here. I should have been dead and gone, but I am here and
Yes.
doing what I'm supposed to do. So I didn't want to breeze past that. But let's talk about the shelter services. Do you all turn away people, or do you accept people? Let me start with the one question. Do you turn away people that are not Christian or that are not of any type of faith? Do they have to be a Christian or someone of faith to come to Light of Life?
No, they do not. Although Light of Life, the thing that makes us unique is our continuum of care and our faith-based program. But we meet individuals wherever they are. They do not have to be Christian to receive services. They can come in, they can believe whatever they want to believe. It's not about any religious preference, any faith. But when they come into our community, we do have things like worship and Bible study and things like that. But they do not have to profess Christ as their Lord and Savior. And it's on our website. If you go and you look there, you'll see that statement that's bold, that they do not have to be a believer of Christ or any other religion to come in. We have the heart of Christ. So you come in and we will meet you wherever you are.
Okay, so we cleared that up.
Yes.
Because that is one rumor I heard. The other is, my queer brothers and sisters and all those in between in the gender spectrum, there is rumors and beliefs that transgender people and queer community are not permitted or wouldn't be welcome at Light of Life. And I just want you to talk to that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because we often hear that a lot, the faith-based, we don't accept, queer, transgender. And we do allow them to come in. They come in, they get meals, they take showers, they stay in our shelters, they have an intake assessment just like anyone else would have. And so, but yes, they're more than welcome to come and receive services there. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I want to kind of debunk that.
Okay. I'm glad that your answers are what they are because we don't want anybody to be unhoused, and especially because homelessness with the queer community, especially with transgender community, is very high. There's a lot of, pulling away of them, kicking the transgender community out of the house and people disowning them, and they're already feeling abandoned, and we want to be inclusive, especially when we're talking about homelessness. We want everybody to feel like they can come and receive some help and get a home.
Yes.
So I'm so glad to hear that. So glad to hear that. Thank you for clearing that up. So it's a myth, y'all. It ain't true.
It's not.
Okay. So I keep hearing this, Tamiko, that homelessness has gotten bad, especially in Pittsburgh. It's gotten bad. And I had an opportunity to go to LA and go down Skid Row, and I say opportunity because that doesn't sound like it, but from social work point of view, it's like I need to see what reality is and what's going on. And so, I had someone drive me down Skid Row, and I have to confess, I've never seen people in like so many blocks living in tents, and it was like, it was crushing, it was heart-wrenching. And I said, this is what I'm seeing in Pittsburgh. Y'all know we're out of Pittsburgh, and I have folks from all over the country that watch, even in Africa, so thanks y'all for watching. But I've seen Pittsburgh in another way. I'm born and raised here. Like we have folks living in tents. Like, I'm driving in different parts, not just downtown, but different parts of the city, and I'm seeing that. So in your opinion, because this is just what I'm seeing, has homelessness gotten worse, and what did COVID have to do with this?
Oh, I would say with COVID, it really changed a lot of things. I would say with mental health access, people who were experiencing mental health and having housing issues and being in their homes and not coming outside, I can say it really did a number on mental health because a lot of people who were going inside and seeing their therapists are now seeing them on Zoom, and a lot of people didn't have access to technology, or some may didn't even know how to turn on a computer. So now we're asking them to see their mental health therapist and all their supports, their primary care and family and friends on technology, and that created barriers to them being able to receive the appropriate level of care they needed. And so mental health, there was an uptick in mental health. There was an uptick in people not being able to pay rent, not being able to pay bills because businesses had, cut their hours off or closed down, and just a lot of different things was happening in the world that caused a lot of social issues. And so we saw a major impact of COVID on the unsheltered and on those individuals who were battling mental health.
Wow, all that was going on. We were all struggling to stay alive. And I feel like, me, my circle, we're pretty privileged people. We had a house to be in.
Amen.
We had food to eat the next day. But I felt like, I can't do this. I'm like laying outside somewhere trying to get some air. And I'm thinking, what about the people that had a home and then found themselves not having a home? Like, I'm laying outside because I wanted to. And I could go back in and go into my bed. And things like that I thought about. There's not a choice here.
No.
Yeah. And I wanted to really bring to you some of the stigmas and myths. Because this is an expert, okay? And I need some of these because I've been hearing them for multiple years. And I want you to be a myth buster today. Okay, so I'm going to fire them at you, and I just want you to, from experience, I want you to talk about it. So one of the myths are, don't give homeless people, I'm saying it wrong on purpose, don't give them money because they're going to use drugs with it.
Yeah. And so one of the things I often say when people say, how do we handle the homeless? How do we talk to them? What do we do when we see them? You treat them like a human. You treat them like a person.
They are people.
They're people, right? And so oftentimes when I'm riding past and I'm in my car and somebody will come up and they say, I'm hungry, I need money for food, I'll say, hey, can I take you to get something to eat? Can I take you over to the Light of Life where we can get you more than a meal? We can get you, And so we need to start treating people that we see that's unsheltered like a human. Have a conversation. And not this, they're a drug addict. Oh, not this, they're mentally insane, and all of those labels that we put on them. They're a human who have faced a plethora of situations that we may not know about. Believe it or not, there are some doctors that's on the street that's homeless. There are some lawyers on the street that's homeless. There are some nurses for various reasons that you may not know about, but I'm sure if you would take the time to ask, you would uncover that there's more going on than what you can see with the natural eye.
And you would know.
Yes, absolutely.
Are y'all surprised by this? Like, you would know.
Yes.
You service these folks. And in the people, being the director of the programs, you're over several programs.
Yes.
So you see hundreds of folks coming in.
Absolutely.
And they are just like you, just like me. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, clergy people, regular old person that works at Shop and Save. Like, everybody is vulnerable to be unsheltered or unhoused. It's a situation a lot of the times.
Absolutely. And Dr. Toya, if I can just say, I remember one day when an elderly woman, and it's sad that we have elderly people that's unsheltered because the cost of rents, do I have to choose between paying my rent and my medication? And so I remember one night it was an older lady that came in, and just from talking to her, she ended up being unsheltered because she didn't have enough money to afford her rent based on having to pay high co-pays and just some other things that was going on. And after talking to her, I thought about a time in my life, I said, when I could have been homeless. I could have been,
like
as a single mother, I could have been homeless. And I would have wanted somebody to treat me as a person and hear my story and not label and not stigmatize me, but hear my story and how can you help me? Because if we look at what's going on right now in the county with rents and lack of access to services and supports, anybody at any given time may not have the mental capacity to handle a lot of things that may be going on around them.
Wow. You normalize all of this so much. It really brought, and can y'all see and hear this passion? This is this is what I saw and heard. And I was like, people need to hear this. Because the passion to look at the unsheltered as people, just like me and just like you. And if I'm approaching this person that looks just like me or could be me, if I'm approaching them like a person, then I'm not demeaning them. I'm not yelling and cussing at them out the window or throwing something at them. I've seen all this. I've seen people do this and talk to people that, that are living on the street like they are trash. Like they're trash. They're litter on the street. That is not who they are. They are people that were in circumstances that maybe their mental capacity couldn't take, or financially they weren't set up. They don't have no rich uncle or anything like that, or big sister. I can call my big sister if I'm broke. I call my mama, my daddy, my auntie, my uncle. I have a big row of people. But what about folks that don't have that support system, or their support system's not willing to help financially because perhaps they're tired of dealing with their mental health crisis or something. And that's the system, y'all. The system. That's why we're out there trying to change policy and law in the system, because no older person should be unhoused because they couldn't afford medication. There should not be a choice, of a house or some medication. So we gotta, my policy writing folk, we gotta keep on that journey. Keep on. Thank you for what y'all do, and keep doing it. I got more myths.
Sure.
Yeah, I got some garbage. I mean, some thoughts. Why don't they just get a job? I got a job. Why don't they just get a job and get themselves out of the situation? Like, I work hard for my money. I'm not going to give you my money. Why don't you just get a job?
And and we work with individuals every day at Light of Life that are out seeking jobs. And if you have a criminal record, some of those things are barriers to getting employment. And and then sometimes I talk to some of the men and some of the women if they've been out on multiple job interviews and with doors of, well, we'll call you, and we don't call you because once they found out there was a criminal background, or if they run a background check and there was an eviction on their record where they may have at some point been mentally unstable and they got evicted. So all of these things are barriers to getting employment. So it's not as easy as just to just go get a job. We have to think about the individual and what are some of the barriers to getting a job. And also making a livable wage on top of that. So if you want me to get a job and the rents are for a 1-bedroom $1,300, minimum wage is $7 an hour, come on, let's look at that.
Yeah.
And those are some of the people that come through our doors. And so we need to really just start, like she said, get the policymakers to start writing policies and changing things. And some of the people that come through our doors, they go out and they get a job and they may make $11 an hour. Okay, can $11 an hour support $1,300 or $1,400 rent? And we're talking about being in a place that's safe and affordable.
Right, and we're talking about one person. What about, you say you service families, children. You can't do anything with that. I mean, just a pair of shoes alone, just to send your kid to school. You have to feed yourself in the family. You have to pay the bills. On top of that, really high rent. I went like this. You could tell the last time I was like, whoa, rent's that high? Like that's reality. And I've heard that it's hard to get a job when you don't have a home. That they're like, oh wait, you don't have an address, you don't have a place. A lot of jobs require vehicles sometimes, and so there's a lot of obstacles that community and public aren't aware of when they're putting this judgment on folks. I got some more.
Sure.
I got some more. So the homeless people, I'm saying it wrong on purpose, homeless people have mental illness or they have substance abuse disorder. Okay, so why don't they go to therapy and get a job and go to drug and alcohol and get themselves cleaned up? They're choosing to take drugs. They're choosing to not seek therapy, I know you got a bunch to say about this.
Yeah.
I feel bad saying it, but this is what's happening. Go ahead, Tamiko, set us straight.
Yeah, and so yeah, all of those labels. And so one thing I've come to know is that from working at Light of Life, it has really opened my eyes and looking at individuals who are facing these challenges every day. When we say that someone has mental illness, or why don't they just go to therapy? We don't know that there is a lack of access to mental health treatment. I mean, the waiting lines for therapy sometimes are months.
Yep.
Sometimes people come through our doors and we need to be able to get them a higher level of care than what we even offer. There's a lack of access to even that. So when we start talking about those things, without knowledge, that saddens me, because I work with these individuals every day and have conversations, and also have taken them to places myself to try to get them into, whether it's an inpatient program or get them a psychiatric evaluation in order for them to be able to receive talk therapy. And it's just not easily accessible.
It's not.
It's not.
I'm a therapist, and I can say absolutely yes, and you're right to everything. Like the waiting list is so long after COVID. Even though we're 4 years out, it's still really hard to get into therapy. And shout out to all my therapist friends out there. Y'all are banging it out. Y'all are doing such a fantastic job running groups, doing individual, but y'all are so overwhelmed with how many people are even on your waiting list. So there are new practices open up, which I'm so glad y'all chose to do that and bringing in some more people. But therapy is not a magic wand.
No.
So you're not going to be, everything's all better. It takes the right matchup. It takes the right medication. Getting into a psychiatrist is 6 months, or more. So by the time someone can get to someone, they could be in a mental health crisis. And when you're in a mental health crisis, you cannot systematically say, I need to pay my bills. I need to make sure this happens. I need to make sure. It just comes on sometimes, and the onset is really heavy. And so, speaking as a therapist, I've seen my clients do really well, and then in a couple weeks, boom, they're having, maybe psychosis or something is really hitting them hard situationally, and they're down in that dark tunnel of depression or anxiety or bipolar, and that can happen. It can happen in an instant. So we are not to judge people. They are individuals, they are humans, they are people, and they're in situations that we very well could have been in, but because we had some luck, or we were blessed with some other, whatever it may be around us to help us, that wasn't our story. But it is our story with someone over here. And I wanna just say this last one, because I've heard this quite a bit. Why would you want to live on the street? Why don't you just go to a shelter? Like, why would you be laying on the concrete and sleeping there? I've heard this. And I want you to talk to that, and that's going to be the last of that, because you've been very patient with this mess. But why would anybody want to live on the street? And I just shelter.
Yes, and I want to say, a lot of the individuals, and sometimes whenever we go out in our outreach team, we have a fabulous outreach team that goes out to the encampments every day. They're engaging with people that's out on the street. And the number one reason why people say they're out on the streets is because they don't trust. They've been either hurt in shelters or victimized in shelters, or maybe somebody didn't make them feel welcome in the shelters. I thank God that Light of Life, we doing it different. But, and that's the number one reason, or they don't trust. They feel that when they go in some of these shelters, that they're more at risk inside than they are out on the street.
Oh, we got to break this down. Okay, so I know I've heard from the queer population and from transgender folks that is a number one reason why they're not going into the shelter. Victimization is high. But I've also heard from cisgender, heterosexual folks that said, I don't feel safe. People will steal. People might hurt me. And I've heard, I don't trust the system as a whole, especially from people of color. Okay, and women. So has that been your experience, that this is the population most of the time are like, I don't trust because of physical harm or have they been emotionally abused? Just talk a little bit more about that. You didn't open up something.
Yes, and so some women have come to Light of Life, and either if they're coming from a shelter in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, or they've come from other states, or they've been sex trafficked, or what have you. They come from all over, and they come through our doors. So it's not just the Allegheny County thing. It's a national thing where people are experiencing, trauma in shelters, because you figure shelters have some of the most vulnerable people that come through their doors with mental health and substance abuse, and they may be unstable. So they're sleeping and encountering these individuals, and so a lot of times they are opting to stay out on the street where they do feel safe with people that they feel that they trust out there versus individuals they come in that they don't know. And so those are some of the stories that I hear.
Wow. Oh, we didn't even scratch the surface of sex traffic.
Oh.
Like that is a big deal. And we, in Pittsburgh, we're a small city. And so my folks that are looking and listening from Philly and from places like California and Atlanta and those spots, it's like it's a bigger issue, but it is an issue here.
It is.
It is, and we a lot of times, Tamiko, I gotta say, we talking about us, y'all. Turn a blind eye if it's not me, mine, and we can't. And I was going to ask the question, like, do you feel like people turn a blind eye, and why? Do you think it's our responsibility? But I'm like, yes, it is our responsibility. And why do you think people turn a blind eye, or maybe not even think it's an issue until it starts coming in their backyard? Why do you think we do that as a society?
Yeah, because what we ignore, we don't have to deal with. If we ignore it, we don't have to be accountable for it. If I can turn a blind eye like I don't see it, I guess it's somehow they feel like it eased the conscience, but it's not. We can't ignore it. We have a responsibility to act. And I want to share something that happened maybe 2 weeks ago when I went over to Duquesne University, and I was speaking to a group of Chinese students who are upcoming occupational therapists, and I said, how do you handle the unsheltered over in your country? And the one young lady said, it's the government's responsibility.
Oh.
We don't have on our streets. They were blown away by the number of tents and homelessness that they saw over in China. They said, we're called, it's our responsibility to take care of those individuals.
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast. You about to get me started. It's their responsibility. And I think it's one of those, if I close my eyes, remember when you were little, y'all, you close your eyes and you thought that people couldn't see you. You thought grown-ups couldn't see you. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I close my eyes, then the problem will go away. That's not true. And it is. I'm a bit of a socialist, I have to admit. It's our responsibility. No one should be living on the street. No one should be in the cold. Pittsburgh can get cold in the winter. Pittsburgh can get cold in doggone spring in the summer. And no one should be out there living, regardless what the issue is and what happened. It is our responsibility. And, for China to say the government takes that and says it's their responsibility, well, we can learn from that. We want fast cars. We want to get the bag. We want, get my coins and all that. When we're doing that, we have people that are hungry and that are living on the street, and they are children too. They are animals. For all of my lovers of animals, I have a fur baby at home. They are people. They're human like us. Tamiko, what do we need to know? And we both together said it's our responsibility. Tell us what we can do as the community, as the college community, because I have a variety of audience listening. Mm-hmm. So we have folks that just live in the community, but we have folks that are college students. What can we do? What do you want us to know? And then what should we be doing? That's what I want to say.
We need to speak up. We need to advocate. We need to get involved. We need to volunteer. There is a lot of volunteer opportunities at Light of Life and other shelters throughout Allegheny County. And just on the side of the shelter, a lot of the shelters are understaffed. they're short-staffed. And so if there's opportunity to get involved and to volunteer and bring your compassion and your empathy in some of these spaces and have conversations with some of the individuals that's coming through the door, or even if you see that homeless person out on the street, you can tell them about Light of Life and say, you won't be judged there, but you'll be loved there. You'll be made to feel safe there. Go and just have a conversation. We can't turn a blind eye. Because if we continue to turn a blind eye, it's just going to get larger and larger. We're called to respond.
We are called to respond. That was a gold nugget. Clink, clink, dropped. Right? We're called to respond. If you see it, you're supposed to be doing something about it. I remember when I was little. My dad is like 6'1", 6'2", he's tall. And I remember looking straight up as we're walking on the street, and I saw someone laying on the street. They were unhoused. I didn't have any of that social work terminology. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what it was. I said, Dad, why is he staying on the street? Why is he sleeping on the street? We have an extra room in our house. You know, I had to be about 5, 4 maybe. I just remember being really short. And I said, why is he there? He could be warm. He can stay with us. That was the social work mind. Mm. And Tamiko forgot to mention she's getting her MSW.
I did.
Welcome. We can't wait. But I remember saying that, and my dad, I remember him being like, oh, this little kid. Mm. And he tried to explain about, why someone would be living on the street and what we should be doing, because he has that kind of frame of mind. And I remember, that was the first time I was like, this is my path.
Yes.
But if you see it, you have to do something about it. It pulls on your heart. So it's our responsibility. And I love that y'all accept volunteers.
Yes.
We have interns that could come. I know in our college and the other universities in the city, there are many shelters, Light of Life being one that I have a connection with. But I want those of you that work in the shelters and those of you that are doing the work, I applaud you. Thank y'all so much for all that you do, because it's a joint effort.
Yes.
It's not a competition. Let me tell you, y'all like working together in the streets.
Yeah.
So Light of Life, I wanted to give the website, www.lightoflife.org. So the lightoflife.org. They have a volunteer drop-down menu. You want to explain that to them, how they can volunteer?
Yeah, sure. If you would go onto our website, there would be a drop down that says volunteer opportunities, and on there would be listed all of our volunteer opportunities, whether you want to come in and you want to serve in a food pantry, or you say, hey, I want to serve meals, or I want to work with the children. And so you can select which area that you would want to volunteer in, and then our volunteer coordinator would reach out to you, get a date for you to come in and get an orientation and get you involved. And so, yes, please feel free, as Dr. Toya said, www.lightoflife.org, and we'll be more than happy to get you involved.
You got to get involved. If you have that frame of mind, the way Tamiko, well, not many of us are this high up in the frame of mind, but we now have been schooled and educated. And even if you are being reminded of this stuff, that is the place and the point that we're at. We know, we're reminded, or we just learned about the unhoused and what our responsibilities are. Let's volunteer. Let's get involved. Let's ask what you need instead of just bringing a big garbage bag full of stuff to the door. Like, I always wondered that. I got to ask that. Is it useful for us to stuff baggies with toothbrush and socks and things and just bring it? Or would y'all prefer to say, what is it that you need, and let's make sure we can provide that?
Absolutely. So we do and what you're talking about is the toothbrush and the soap. We are called those our hygiene kits. And guess what? Our guests and clients, they love hygiene kits.
Okay, good.
They do.
Because I've done that, and I wonder, do
we
y'all
love-
need this, or should I be asking?
We
what
love
do y'all
them.
need? Okay,
we
good.
love the hygiene kits, and we
Okay,
give them out
awesome.
all year round. And also on our website, they'll have a list of items that we need that'll come straight from our team, and we usually let our donation center know what our needs are, and we compile a list and we put it on our website. Or you can even call on there and ask our volunteer coordinator to get you connected with our his name is Matt. He runs our donation center, and he'll be more than happy to let you know what we need. We always use men's and women's clothing, children's clothing, and definitely the hygiene kits. We really appreciate those.
Oh, good. Okay, so we're on the right track. I'm a part of basically a public service organization and sorority. Shout out to my sorors, Delta Sigma Theta. And that is something that, we always want to be sure that we're giving back to the community. And so something like that, sorors, okay, yes, we're on track. I so appreciate you coming. I know you are busy, and you took the time out to really educate us and come speak to us. Thank you for coming. I know you guest lecture here at the University of Pittsburgh, so thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And just educating our students. But now you educated our podcast community, our family out there. Tamiko, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, you're a natural. We had a good time on this podcast. Again, the website, y'all, I got to slow down. www.lightoflife.org. Volunteer, donate. They're welcoming you, everybody. And thank you for your passion and your work. I know that you all heard that as well. Thank y'all for tuning in today. Thank you for listening. Leave comments down below. How did this enlighten you? Did it enlighten you? Did it make you want to move? Mm-hmm. Where do you fit in, y'all? Are you coming down to the shelter? Are you hands-on? Or are you one of the ones that are writing a policy?
Yes.
Are you making a phone call saying we need to do something?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Is it those small deposits of just treating the unhoused like human beings and showing love and care to the folks that are living on the street? Is this what your purpose and plan is? We could fit in where we get in. Let's go. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for watching Healing Overflow with Dr. Toy, the Social Work Podcast. I appreciate all of you, and I love it when I hear about your healing process. So keep sharing that. Keep healing so your healing overflows onto everyone else. See y'all next time. Bye.
See ya.